opening bell of the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Connor Rogers joining you guys to once again kick off everybody's favorite series the entire year. Summer scouting, baby. It is finally here. When I say that, I mean like the draft was a month and a half ago, but you guys have already been clamoring for it, but I guess we have as well. Connor, I'm very excited today, my man. We're starting things off, of course, at the very top, like we have to, with the quarterback position. And over the next couple of months throughout the summer, we're going to be going through our top fives for every position, ultimately leading to a show big board as we enter the 2023 college football season. So this is where it all begins, my friend. I'm very excited. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm pumped. I appreciate the comment section since the draft ended has been all about summer scouting, which is a really nice trend to see. I feel like when we did this last year, like obviously it was the first year we were doing it and everybody was like, oh, cool. And now that we've done it for a year, it's nice to see excitement leading up to it. Real sickos, honestly, real sicko stuff. I had an embarrassing moment. I was doing this show for SMY. It's called Mets Off Day. When the Mets are off, they do the show. And they end the show asking everybody, with the Mets not on tonight, what are you going to do with your day off? And I was like, you might not believe this, but I am watching the quarterbacks for the 2024 NFL draft. So here we are, man. It's exciting. You and I were texting throughout this process how much volume there is.
Yeah,
the list is, I mean, I have so many guys in my docket quarterback, and I'm excited to continue this process throughout the whole summer. But today we are going to really go deep into the headliners as well.
Yeah, you know, we had this conversation a couple of weeks ago, especially right before the 2023 NFL draft, when we were talking about these quarterbacks and like, oh, okay, like who's going to be QB1, who should be QB1, how high should all these guys go? And we had the grass is greener conversation because it always seems like we're looking to the next draft class and saying, yeah, but next year. And we know that that doesn't always produce the fruits that you think it's going to a year out from a draft class. But getting into this exercise, you and I, where we can't get to all of these quarterbacks, we do have essentially a watch list that we create and we go, okay, I'm going to try to watch before the summer scouting episode. I'm going to try to watch as many of these guys as possible. But, you know, I think in years past, my watch list has been 12 guys.
Right. Yeah,
I mean, like it's about 12 guys because you don't know who's going to come out of nowhere. And honestly, like getting to 12, you're probably talking about quarterbacks that maybe aren't even going to get drafted anyways. I'm at an easy 20 quarterbacks in this class on the watch list. And I got full reports on 9 of these guys. We're going to rank them 5-1 throughout this episode. So you guys will get to hear that and our thoughts on some of the players who did not make the top 5. So we'll dig into as many notes and thoughts as we possibly can. But just to your point, this group seems extremely deep. We could have I actually should have looked this up before the show. And as I'm going to stop talking here in a second, I'm curious how many quarterbacks have been drafted over the last couple of drafts, because I wonder if this class coming up is going to break any sort of records, because there's just a lot of names to know this year.
It's a great question. And the number is smaller than you really think. I mean, this year there was 14 quarterbacks taken, which is a lot. The year before that, there was 9. The year before that, there was 10. The year before that, in 2020, there was 13. So this hovers typically from 8 to 13, I would say. Maybe 15 in a big year, which was ironically 2016. There was 15 quarterbacks drafted. And you're right. This year, it just feels different. It's weird. A lot of guys have gone back to school to develop, probably because if you think about it, if you're a quarterback of a prominent college franchise, you're making a lot of money off the NIL,
right?
Which is great for you.
Yes.
Like you're the face of that college football team, so you're making a lot of money.
The combination of NIL and we still have guys who have the COVID year eligibility.
Yep.
That is producing a massive quarterback class. And it's kind of coming to a head because there's not a ton of quarterbacks who I think after this class would realistically use their COVID eligibility. We're kind of running out of those players. This is the last year where I think the pool is going to be huge of guys who are notable names, who are maybe underclassmen who we thought were going to get drafted, maybe didn't play as well, have that extra year to figure things out. And obviously because of NIL, it's sort of an easy decision depending on how much money you're making. if you're not guaranteed to be a first or second round pick, a lot of these guys are just like, okay, I'll go back. And if I get better, I get better. You look at jumps like what Anthony Richardson was able to make, right? 1 year makes all the difference in the world. The guy goes number 4 overall. Joe Burrow is obviously the golden child for 1 year, can make all the difference. He goes number 1 overall. He improves so much, all that good stuff. So not to say that there's a Joe Burrow in this class, but I think that a lot of quarterbacks, to your point, are having that conversation with their brain trusted people. And as we have seen with the evidence of this class, a lot of them have landed on, hey, I'll come back an extra year. I'll try to figure it out, and we'll see what our draft grade can be the following year.
It's exactly right. And on top of it, the portal is such a big factor. The way I structure my doc, it goes first name, last name, position, school. And the way I write in the cells, the school, I put, for example, if you're talking about somebody like Caleb Williams, it would be USC. And then parentheses, I put from where they transferred from, if they transferred. And I find myself, Trevor, with the quarterbacks, it feels like all these guys have had at least 2 stops. That's what's insane about it. So it's very, very interesting to see this cycle. Like you said, it's coming to a head. You have a lot of guys that have been in school. There are plenty of guys that this is their 6th year of college football, 5th year of college football. I mean, they're going to be 24-year-old rookies, and that's not uncommon at all with this group. So yeah, there's a ton of volume in this group. It'll be interesting to see who can play themselves, of course, into being draftable or move a day in the draft. And the top 5 is very intriguing, of course, why everyone's here. Yes, we could do the grass is greener, but there's expected star talent in this quarterback class, and it has people really, really excited. And I'm not going to lie, it was a joy watching the top of this class, because I try to detach myself from the hype. I really, really did, because hype is going to happen with at least one quarterback prospect going into every single summer. And I think a lot of it is justified. I'll say that off the top. So this group has volume. It has star talent at the top, and we are in for a very busy year, my friend.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll definitely, we'll be jumping into this pretty quickly. We'll start off with our number 5. If you guys were here last year for summer scouting, you know how this goes. We'll start at 5, and we'll keep the suspense up to who's going to be number 1 for us throughout summer scouting. And so that's how it's going to start. But I did want to mention this, because a lot of people ask us throughout the year, whether it's during the summer or during the season, or even like during draft time, when we know we have a lot of extra eyes and ears who are watching and listening to the show. Some people are like, hey, how do you get to this process? And they always love when we kind of peel back the curtain a little bit on how you and I evaluate these guys. And my scouting process, my kind of like core process, it changes a little bit every year. Like some years I'm making little tweaks to how I'm evaluating guys, whether it's, the weight of the score or things that I take into account more than I did previous seasons, and just always learning along the way. This year, I am doing something different when it comes to my quarterback rankings, and I think I'm going to try to take this into other positions as well. With there being so many different ways to win, I'm trying to make sure that I have a different grading scale, slightly different grading scale for like what a skill set might be of a person or of a player, especially at quarterback. And so I actually have them divided up this year into dual threat quarterbacks and pocket quarterbacks. So I have a little bit of a different scale for each of these 2 molds of quarterbacks. So, because, like field mobility, for example, is one area that I will grade and I'll give a score to and I'll give analysis to. But if you're a dual threat player, your field ability will matter more and should matter more into who you are and what you can do on the field than a guy who's coming from the pocket. And this might come as a duh, but for the first time, I'm really making different scales to see how that kind of comes out. So throughout this episode, you're going to hear me mention whether I had this guy as labeled as a dual threat and he was going through kind of that dual threat analysis, or he was more of a pocket guy. And that's not to say that they might not change. Maybe I thought a guy was a little bit more mobile. He's more of a pocket guy, vice versa throughout the year. But just to give people, again, a little bit of a look back into the kitchen, see how things are made, if you will. That's something that I'm doing a little bit different this year. And as I talk through it, now you guys kind of understand it and you get to hear that a little bit better.
No, I think it's great. And I think it matters a lot because we've just seen the game change so much, and we've seen the prospect trajectory change so much. I don't want it. It didn't start with Lamar Jackson, but for me with scouting, I feel like Lamar was a good example of somebody who he's as elite of a runner at the position as you will ever see. And I mean, I'm literally counting like Michael Vick in that conversation. That's Lamar at the
Yeah,
position.
sure.
And there was a lot of tools as a thrower. And you knew that if he went into an offense, and even really without going into an offense, because when the play breaks down, his running is really special too, not just designed runs, that he would still be an effective player, from the position while he continued to maximize those tools or grow those tools as a thrower. And, we've seen Jalen Hurts go through that trajectory in a little bit of a different way. A lot of people have all eyes on Anthony Richardson to go through that kind of situation. We've seen Justin Fields capitalize on his running while he tries to develop his passing. So it matters a lot, Trevor, because you can't just sit there and overlook something like that in a prospect when the bottom line is, will it score points? Will it affect the game? Will it help an offense? When the answer is often yes.
Yep. So I wanted to, I don't know, play a little bit of a game with you as I kind of introduce something that I know that you and I are going to talk about a lot, because we have the PFF Ultimate tool, and you guys out there that have a PFF subscription, you can see something called adjusted completion percentage as well. So that's a stat that Connor and I like to reference a lot as we talk about quarterback play, because accuracy, one of the most important traits there is for a quarterback, but completion percentage itself isn't really a good representation exactly of what the trait of accuracy is. Now, adjusted completion percentage, which takes into account drops and does not penalize quarterbacks for drops when they throw a good accurate pass, that is something that's a little bit better. Of course, you got to make sure that you're watching the film anyways. But I wrote these down to give some people some context as we went through things, because I know they're going to hear us talk about adjusted completion percentage a lot in this episode. So I went out there and I found, through the top 25 quarterbacks in the NFL, what the mean, so the middle number of adjusted completion percentage is, and what that is from a clean pocket, and then what it is when they are pressured as well. Just so you guys have a reference point of when we mention what a quarterback's adjusted completion percentage is, you go, oh, okay, then that's kind of like NFL medium. Like he's completing the ball where he should, or it's way less, way more. The mean for adjusted completion percentage of the top 25 quarterbacks in the NFL since 2013 is 73.5%. So keep that number in your head as you hear us reference what these guys' adjusted completion percentage is. In the NFL, the middle number is 73.5. With pressure, it goes down, you would expect, but to 63.6. So keep that in mind as well. If you hear guys like, oh, these are his numbers under pressure, and it's a completion percentage like way in the 50s, low 50s, whatever it is, that's not good. That means that they're not really doing what they need to do under pressure. I don't know if I should. All right. We're going to make a little bit of a game out of this, I guess. Connor, who do you think in the NFL since 2013, and this is cumulative, who do you think is the highest adjusted completion percentage of any quarterback since 2013? So it's over the last 10 years. Think of all like the best quarterbacks in the NFL.
Still playing, or anyone?
It can be anybody, because these are guys who could have retired recently, but the sample size is still big. So it's not like they would have retired in like 2015 or something like that.
I wonder if there's like a trick element to this, because off the top of my head, you just think to answer Tom Brady or Drew Brees.
It's Drew Brees.
Okay.
It's Drew Brees. Yeah. I wasn't pulling a fast one on you.
Okay.
It was Drew
like,
Brees.
It has to be, I think, like, especially that offense, the way it was run, especially at the end there where everything was like a pass to Alvin Kamara.
Correct.
Just joking around, but not really.
Drew Brees, 78.2% was his adjusted completion percentage. So almost 5 whole points above what the middle of the NFL was. I don't think you're going to get the low just because it could be anybody.
Oh, but there's no minimum, like
there is like it's 4 quarterbacks that have graded out as a top 25 passer in passing grade since 2013.
Right.
It's Carson Palmer.
Oh, I wouldn't have got that if you gave me 10 tries.
So Carson Palmer had a cumulative adjusting completion percentage score of 69.0. So nice. But
Had to do it.
And then the last two, the low when it comes to pressure for guys in the top 25 is actually Josh Allen at 57.8%. So he has the lowest adjusted completion percentage when pressured of the top 25 quarterbacks since 2013. And the highest with pressure, it's not Drew Brees, although Drew Brees is number 2. It's actually Teddy Bridgewater. And Teddy Bridgewater's sample size was high enough to where I couldn't just throw it out and just give it to Drew Brees again.
No. People forget Teddy has played a lot of games.
He's an assassin between years.
Something like that.
All right. Anyways, I just wanted to throw those out there because I know that we're going to talk about adjusted completion percentage. And I know people often like context with numbers. They go like, okay, well, what does this mean to me? Like, what does this number mean to me?
No, it's important.
So I just wanted to throw that out there to everybody. Remember, the mean for top 25 quarterbacks in the NFL for the last 10 years when it comes to adjusted completion percentage, 73.5. And when you add pressure into there, it goes down to 63.6. So that's the context as we kind of move forward here. But Connor, I've done enough talking here at the beginning of this podcast. Please take it away, my friend. Who is your number 5 quarterback for summer scouting in the 2024 cycle?
Man, I went really not back and forth, but I looked at this spot and I said, out of all the top 5s we've done of rankings, going back to last year's summer scouting, all those, and really just in general, this to me was the classic, like, man, you can make an argument for a lot of players in this spot. A lot of players. So what I did was at number 5, I went with a guy that has the tools to make a massive, massive jump this year as a prospect, but also, as we stand here today, is the type of player that we could be summer scouting again next year very, very easily. And talking about warts that we saw in the 2022 tape popping back up in 2023. And that player is Quinn Ewers.
Oh, you did put Ewers at 5. Okay.
At Texas. And listen, I'm going to be honest. There's more things listed on the cons than the pros with Quinn Ewers. I want to be honest here. I even texted you a gif of Toad like shaking out of control, saying this is what it was like watching Quinn Ewers, dude. But there's a little line in the notes that's not pros or cons. That's just massive peaks and valleys in terms of play on tape. Yeah. Seriously, when you watch Quinn Ewers. But with that being said, let's start with the surface level of Mr. Quinn Ewers, the current quarterback of Texas, ranked number 1 nationally overall by 247 Sports, Rivals. This was a huge recruit, a huge, huge recruit. And he obviously transferred from Ohio State. He enrolled early, transferred from Ohio State to Texas. And as a redshirt freshman last year, he started. So this is a young dude. This is a really, really young dude. I want to be fair to him. Now, let's get into the actual player here in Quinn Ewers. The first thing I noticed when I turn on the tape, Trevor, he's got to add mass. And he's a young dude, and it's going to happen. But he needs to pack on some weight to that frame. And I know he got hurt last year as well. And he's a young player, so he'll continue to do that. But high-level arm talent, despite consistently throwing the ball with a sidearm release. He is not a drop back, over the top, conventional passer. He really looks like somebody that you kind of just handed a football to and you never said anything. And you're like, hey, try throwing this thing. Like when you're throwing a Nerf ball around on the beach.
Yes.
It's kind of how Quinn Ewers plays quarterback.
Yep.
And it's really freaking weird because as much as you look at it and you go, I don't like this, he makes some incredible throws while doing that. And he also misses a lot of throws. He is not, out of the top 5 quarterbacks I have on the list, he is by far the least accurate of the top 5. And that's where he needs to make a big jump. I wrote vertical touch, especially against Alabama, was really impressive.
The Bama game is nice, man.
I remember watching it live and I was like, God damn, Quinn Ewers is here already.
Yeah.
And then he got hurt and all that. And then I went back and watched the tape, obviously, for this exercise. And I was like, it was maybe even better than I remembered.
Yeah.
I was like, some of the throws he's just dropping in the lap here are really, really impressive. he will hang in and get killed to make throws. I mean, there's times where I'm like, no, like you like kind of like, shiver a little bit. You're like, I don't want you to hang in that long because he's going to get destroyed to make
Right.
a throw. He is tough as hell. The cons, his accuracy on intermediate and deep middle of the field throws is just not consistent at all. He'll airmail passes, he'll sail passes, and it's really goes back to he doesn't play with consistent mechanics. He's the sidearm thrower. The base isn't always present. He
Yep.
doesn't rotate his base with his shoulders. He just likes to be all arm sometimes. And honestly, when his base is very consistent and everything's tied together, he still misses throws sometimes because of the sidearm throws. It's kind of like a pitcher with a weird delivery. It's so odd. He does not consistently use his base to drive throws, and he's still getting comfortable and going through the growing pains as the lead general of his offense. And what I mean by that is you watch some of these other guys that have been playing much longer than him at the college level, and things are in rhythm. It feels like they understand protection pre-snap. Everything's just kind of humming. With Quinn Ewers, you saw a lot of young player growing pains last year that are going to have to take a leap. And he's number 5 for me because I think they can. And I think he has a lot of talent. He's also number 5 for me that could fall off a cliff in terms of prospect profile and not be one of the first 5 quarterbacks taken next year and goes back to school because there are still a lot of important things of playing the position that he hasn't grasped yet. So young player, love the talent, think he can make a jump. Not holding my breath, definitely have some concerns, but a wild roller coaster of a watch with some jaw-dropping throws. There's just no way to deny that.
Yeah, the toad gif that you used of him freaking out was appropriate when watching Quinn Ewers. There's no doubt about it. And so I have him at 6. So he's right outside my top 5, and we did see him pretty similarly. I'll get to my notes in a second, but something I wanted to do for summer scouting is something that I saved this more towards the end of the scouting cycle last year, but I figured, you know what, let me just throw it in for summer scouting because I think it'll be a good reference point for the people and also for my notes as well. So when I looked up height and weight for these guys, I also went and looked up if they were to measure in at the combine at that weight, what would the percentile be? And so that kind of gives a little bit of context to where these guys are. And you mentioning the weight profile, that is something that you need to note about Quinn Ewers. Texas has him listed at 6'2", which is in the 32nd percentile. So that's not super tall for the position. 205 pounds is what they have him listed at. That's 7th percentile. So
he's light.
He is light. He's shorter and he's a little bit lighter. Now you would think that means that he's probably got a little bit of physical arm talent deficiencies. God, no, that's not the case.
No,
this dude, I don't know if I've ever seen a passer like Quinn Ewers. And I'm not pretending to have seen every passer in the world and know all of these guys, but for him to generate the power that he does in his arm without having good lower body mechanics, and without even following through on his throw to where he can get his full core involved in torquing the ball, it's incredible. You mentioned it's kind of like a specialty pitcher in baseball, and I thought about that as well because I'm sitting here in my notes and I'm like, man, because okay, so if everybody goes out there and watches him, you'll notice, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see me do it. When he has the ball up here. And he flicks it,
yes.
But he stays up. When you throw the ball, typical quarterback mechanics, when you're teaching these guys how to throw the ball, is you're going across the body, you're getting your core involved so you can get more torque, more spin. Right. Your hips are involved, your lower body, then you get to generate power from your feet all the way up, and you are following through. And normally that thumb goes down, and you're supposed to, the visual is, put that thumb in the opposite pocket. Have your arm go all the way across the body, and that will be a consistent spiral, consistent power that you're getting on it. And Quinn Ewers, when he throws the ball, he throws it, not only does he throw it sidearm, but he keeps his arm up. He doesn't, it doesn't even go down across his body. It's like he's just keeping his arm up to flick it. And that specialty pitcher thing, I try to convince myself like, all right, well, maybe he just throws kind of funny. Maybe it's not this big negative. but I think that it is because he misses way too often.
Way too often.
And I wrote down a couple of key PFF stats that we have from Ultimate for each of these guys. Ewers' adjusted completion percentage. Remember, guys, 73.5 is what you're supposed to shoot for. It's the middle of good starting ability in the NFL. He's at 67.5. That is significantly lower than where he needs to be. And when pressured, it goes down to 51 because when his mechanics are clean, they're not great and they're not consistent. When he's off platform, they're worse. So all of that goes into him having a high turnover worthy play rate as well. And there's just so many things that he is not able to build upon with his talent because his consistency is not there. So we did see him pretty similarly. I do like Ewers, but to your point, he is way too volatile right now. And I don't know how much Texas is going to try to change his throwing motion at this point. I don't know.
I mean, he is so like that would be such a change at this point. I don't think you can.
But you have to, right?
I don't know.
He does not have the consistency to lead that team right now. So unless he becomes a total anomaly of this is my throwing motion and somehow I'm going to get way more accurate with it, I don't know, man. I don't know.
It's fascinating. I don't know if they'll toy with it because of some of the raw ability and being afraid to lose it. I don't know. I would love to know, honestly, what they're thinking, what Quinn is thinking, because Quinn has been a stud, his whole football life. So it's I mean, so he's looking at it like, it's hard for an athlete that's always been great to be told to completely reinvent themselves.
Yep.
And he was pretty good last year. Like, let's not talk about him like he was just a bum.
No, he was.
That's the tough part.
That one quarter in that Bama game was his best. But he still had good moments after that where he played good football when he came back from the injury. And he was all good to go because he sprained his non-throwing shoulder clavicle.
Yes.
That's what happened. That's why he missed some time. That's why he got knocked out of that Alabama game. So that was the injury that he went through. It shouldn't be something that really hinders him moving forward.
No.
But yeah, I mean, he had, I believe it was a top 30 big time throw percentage in all the FBS last year. So this dude will give his wide receivers a chance. That's something that you absolutely love about him. There was a play. Oh, what game was it? Hold on. I got to check what games I watched.
I don't know how you did this. I tried to do a lot of high-low when watching this. I would start with either a really bad game or a really good game, then flip it, and then get back to the middle ground.
We did the exact same thing. I tried to watch at least 3 games of all of these guys. The highest graded passing grade performance, the lowest passing grade performance, and then I found one in the middle that I was like, all right. Well,
exactly.
So I think it was the Washington game where one of his receivers is
it's a bowl game. Yeah.
Yes. One of his receivers is running a 9 route. So he's just going vertical up the sideline. His wide receiver was at least 3 yards from still even being even with the corner. And he loads up and he's like, nope, we're taking this chance, baby. He just flicks it and lets it fly. And he's fun, man. He's fun, but I don't know. He's too reckless for me to put him
he's a wild man. So he's a wild man. But I need to come up with a nickname like from Red Dead for him. I don't know who it's going to be, but I'll find something. I'm excited to watch him this year because I just don't know what's going to happen. He's either going to light the world on fire and everybody's going to be like, damn, we got another first-round quarterback in here, or it's going to be Spencer Rattler-ish where you're like, honestly, like that's what I was like,
That's what it feels. That's what it feels like. It feels like he could either go from. It feels like he could either like become what the best thought process of Will Levis was, right? Because Will Levis, all tools, all arm, like you're betting on the arm, all that kinds of stuff. So it's either like that Will Levis type of first round conversation based off of arm talent and traits, or you're looking at another Spencer Rattler situation where, I mean, let's face it too, man. If he goes the Spencer Rattler route, he's transferring to his third school because Arch Manning's at Texas now. So they're not going to sit here and let Arch Manning burn years away on the bench.
Arch Manning ain't going to let them burn years away on the bench.
So yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying is it's like, this is, if you ask me, this is Quinn Ewers last year at Texas, whether he's going to the NFL or whether he's playing somewhere else. This is his last year playing for Texas. So we'll see.
Who you got at 5?
So I have Florida State quarterback Jordan Travis.
Number 6 for me.
At number 5. So I figured that we probably just flip-flop these guys. And we'll get into why that was the case. I have a feeling we're going to see these guys similar anyway. So Jordan Travis, redshirt senior for Florida State, listed at 6'1", 212 pounds. 6'1" is the 14th percentile, and 212 pounds would be the 19th percentile. So a smaller statured quarterback, no doubt about it. I've got him in the dual threat category. So I had him going through the dual threats production key that I have for these guys as I'm kind of grading out these players. Just a 3-star quarterback from West Palm Beach, Florida, as a recruit, eventually committed to Louisville. I think he picked Louisville over Baylor, if I do remember correctly.
That's correct. Yep.
Played only one season at Louisville before transferring over to Florida State. He picked Florida State over a myriad of Florida schools. UCF was on here, USF was on here, FAU was on here. And so he just ended up wanting to play for Florida State. And it's been a great decision for him. I've some of the PFF stats that I have here listed for him. The dual threat label, definitely something that you got to pay attention to with him, because 0.42 missed tackles forced per attempt, the 4th best mark of any quarterback in the FBS last season. So that is essentially how many times do you force a missed tackle per carry that you have. 0.42, to give you guys reference, Javonte Williams had one of the highest scores that we've ever had, and he was at like 0.44. I think Bijan Robinson was like 0.42. So I'm not saying that this guy's like as good as Bijan Robinson out of the backfield, but it just shows you what type of a playmaker he is once he gets out of the backfield and touches to run. But he's not just a runner either. He also takes care of the ball really, really well. He was top 15 in both big time throw percentage and turnover worthy play percentage. So he had a very high big time throw rate and a very low turnover worthy play rate. He was just so smart with the football, took his chances when the chances were there. And you absolutely love to see that. I think that it is worth noting that there was a massive gap in adjusted completion percentage when he was pressured versus when he was clean. When he was clean, it was at 76.7%, which was higher than that mean that we mentioned before. When he was pressured, it went all the way down to 58.4. And I think that there are reasons to that once you get into the tape and you kind of look at his traits. I already mentioned, I think that he's a great ball carrier when he has to tuck in a run, when he uses RPOs, when he's scrambling, whether it's quarterback design plays or non-design plays. He's really good. He's very fluid. He likes to get out past the tackles, and he likes to get those yards after contact and a lot of yards on the ground when he's kind of scrambling like that. I think the mechanics are great for him, man. And he's got great lower body mechanics. He's got great upper body mechanics. Now, there are times when it gets away from him, and that's where I usher in maybe some of the negatives with him, and that is he's just small. He's a small quarterback. And a lot of the ways that you're going to have to kind of convince yourself that you liked Bryce Young and overcoming a lot of the size issues that you had there, it's going to be similar types of conversations with Jordan Travis, I think, because you notice that the smaller stature, he doesn't have the same sort of natural zip on passes when it's coming off of his wrist. When it comes to velocity and distance, honestly, he has to put his full body into throws to get it there on time and pace, whether it's intermediate or deep. So he's putting his full body into throws no matter what. I think that that's sometimes when his mechanics can get bad, is when he like leaves his feet and he just totally has to just try to turn his whole body as fast as possible to fire that football in there, because he just doesn't have that natural arm strength. He's just not that big of a dude. So he's super smart between the ears. I think he's really accurate, especially when things are pretty clean. He's got a great knack for when to take a chance, when not to take a chance. I think he reads defenses super well, had an elite PFF passing grade last year. A lot of clean mechanics. Florida State raves about this dude as a leader, as their quarterback. They absolutely love him. He gives you that plus ability as a ball carrier, but there are just some physical limitations with him that I think might get in the way from him really being a prospect that you just fall in love with when you watch him on tape. So that's kind of what I thought about Jordan Travis as my number 5 guy.
I thought the same thing. And I felt like his floor, I would have been really comfortable having him at number 5. And instead, I just swung for the fences with the ceiling guy in Quinn, Quinn Ewers. He was an interesting watch for me. He was better than I expected. They have a very, very good supporting cast there at Florida State. That offense this year is going to be excellent, I think, with the playmakers that he has. He is every bit of a playmaker in terms of he can run around. He has good vision as a runner. That stood out to me.
Yes.
I agree with you, Trevor, that he's going to be a bit of a guy that has to kind of rely on placement and off-speed throwing rather than I'm going to drop back and throw a howitzer 50 yards down the field every single time. So
Yeah.
I'm with you all the way and glad you gave him a shout out at 5. Number 4 for me, and I'm really fascinated if we end up just running the table 4-1 exactly the same. Number 4 for me is another surprise in terms of what this player has been able to turn himself into, and that is Bo Nix at Oregon. Bo Nix was somebody that when I watched him at Auburn, I did not see the makings of a guy that will be a pro quarterback prospect or a significant one, maybe somebody at the end of day 3 in this era of guys that are maybe shorter and stockier and can give you a little bit of playmaking, but are long-term third-string quarterbacks. And when you turn on Bo Nix's tape and what he's been able to become at Oregon, I think he is somebody that understands how to command an offense now. And there's a couple things with him, right? He finishes 2022 with almost 3,600 passing yards, 29 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, only 14 big-time throws, 8 turnover-worthy plays. He added over 500 yards rushing and 14 rushing touchdowns. He obviously had the 3 years of starting at Auburn before taking over as the starter at Oregon in 2022 and who went back to school to start this year. He's got a muscular frame built to take on contact when necessary. Like, this is somebody that clearly is a weight room warrior. He understands that he's going to get hit. He's okay with getting hit. He'll get tough yards for you. He will try to extend plays. Once again, very in command of the offense that he runs. He has no issue nickel and diming defenses if he sees free yards pre-snap. And is that the prettiest thing to watch on film? I mean, when you turn on Bo Nix's tape, there's going to be a lot of dropbacks that are a lot of screens or a lot of short throws or a lot of catch and run throws or looking for advantageous matchups. He's not going to drop back a million times and just try to throw the ball 60 yards downfield all the time. But while it's a big time pro, is that he sees things before the snap and understands how to, take advantage of the defense. I wrote, puts the right amount of touch and air under his deep throws, delivers the ball with different arm angles to capitalize on throwing lanes when he has to, only sacked 6 times in 2022. He understands how to get the ball out against pressure. And you watch a lot of these young quarterbacks, they want to hold the ball and run around for 20 seconds and make a play. Mm-hmm. And Bo Nix, and that's not what goes on in the pros. It does not work in the pros unless you're Patrick Mahomes, or Josh Allen, So Bo Nix is everything against that. He understands how to get the ball out. Cons, this was an interesting nugget I wrote down. 96 of his completions and 619 of those passing yards from 2022 were from throws behind the line of scrimmage. I didn't think he was asked to challenge the intermediate outside the numbers and vertically as much as a lot of the other quarterback prospects. They will throw a million screens and they're content with that. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people like Bo Nix's arm going back to Auburn. I didn't see an arm that consistently will challenge outside the numbers with high velocity, and they don't run an offense asking him to do that. So I'd be kind of curious to he's somebody I would like to see throw in person and be like, oh, he could do that. No problem. They just don't ask him to do it. So I was impressed with Bo Nix. I don't think he has an insane ceiling as an NFL quarterback, but I really, really like his floor and the player he's developed himself into. And he's a little bit different than a lot of the quarterbacks that we get to watch on tape at this stage of their careers because he's really, really started to dive into some polish and break bad habits of a reckless player he once was.
I will respond with my Bo Nix thoughts a little bit later in the show
when I go over him,
because yeah, I do have him a little bit higher. So the player that I have at number 4 is Michael Penix Jr. from Washington, my guy. I know you absolutely, you were talking about Michael Penix Jr. a ton last year. I was talking about him when he was in Indiana, when he was breaking out the 1 year after he came out from the ACL injury. I was like, oh, okay. Like he had his bad injury luck and shoot, man, I wish that would have been the case. But now he's at Washington, played with the Huskies last year. He is a redshirt senior going into his 6th year of eligibility. And Look, for as much as he has missed a lot of time due to injury, man, his game is aging well. He's still playing so well when he is out there on the field. Measures in, according to Washington, of course, 6'3", 216 pounds. 6'3" would be in the 54th percentile, so it's above 50%. That's what you like to see. 216 pounds would be the 31st percentile there for Michael Penix Jr. He's from Tampa, Florida. Shout out Tampa. Was a 3-star prospect.
Yeah, how do you have number 4? Jesus, man.
You're right. I forgot. What I meant to say is Michael Penix Jr. Number 1, Tampa Bay legend. He committed to play at Indiana, and he played at Indiana for a couple of seasons, but this is kind of his journey for anybody that doesn't know Michael Penix Jr. He's a true freshman in 2018 at Indiana. Penix played in 3 games, suffered a torn ACL, and was redshirted. Then he was named the starter the following season in 2019, but he played only 6 games due to a sternoclavicular joint. Basically, It is the clavicle injury, where it connects to the sternum. So he had to miss time for that as well. 2019, returned to Indiana as a starter again, but in 2020, late in the season, he tore his ACL for a second time. Then he ended up transferring to Washington, where he was able to start last season, but he even suffered a shoulder injury in 2021. So there's 4 seasons in which this guy has missed time due to injury, 2 of them ACL injuries, one of them a clavicle injury, and the other one an AC joint injury. So 2 shoulder injuries, or I guess 2 upper body injuries, I should say, and then 2 ACL tears. That is not good. Here is the good. When this guy's out there on the field, he looks like he could be an NFL quarterback, man. Powerful, compact throwing motion that's a little bit to the outside. I mean, there are times when he's looping it a little. It's not as high and tight and square around the shoulder as you would want, but even a little bit of that sidearm motion kind of just goes into his style, and it allows him to get a lot of torque on the ball. I think he's got really good arm strength because of it. Puts some good zip on passes. I think he's got adequate arm strength for the NFL level. Really enjoy how this guy navigates the pocket. I think the feet are light. They're always moving when pressure's coming from his left or his right. He is clearly and comfortably navigating those, but not in a way where you mentioned this about college quarterbacks. A lot of guys like to sit back in the pocket and just run around for 20 seconds. Well, it's because a lot of quarterbacks at the college level, they're not super confident stepping up in the pocket, still ready in a thrower stance, scanning the field, going through the progressions. Michael Penix is. He is that kind of a player. He's not afraid to step up into the pocket, find that space in between the tackles, and still keep his eyes down the field to throw the ball. Also has a really good understanding of eye manipulation. When I watch his games, especially from the end zone angle of the all-22, you can see he's recognizing, like you mentioned with Bo Nix a little bit, he's recognizing things in the pre-snap. He sees where the safeties are aligned, and he goes, okay, I'm eventually going to the left. Let's keep that safety over to the right. And he just had a very good feel for that, and I noticed him really manipulate the defenses a handful of times. Something that I felt like was a kind of a drawback for him, I felt like the touch portion of his game when it came to deep balls sometimes is beautiful, but not always. He just didn't consistently have that touch that you wanted to see for intermediate and deep passes. I wonder if the throwing motion has to do with the consistency of that ball placement, intermediate and deep. So I made sure to note that as well. I think his hips, and this is another part of his throwing mechanics that might be able to get fixed, I think his hips are a little bit too wide, a little bit too open when he is throwing, because it's almost like he's compensating, right? If you think about it in a straight line, if a guy is throwing the ball like this, he's got his feet pointed exactly where he wants to go. The ball is coming over the shoulder and through. It's not an exact straight line, but it's very parallel. All the motion is completely parallel going to the target that way. Sometimes his throw gets released a little bit further out, and I think that he kind of compensates for it by keeping his hips a little bit more open. So the feet are a little wider, the throwing motion's a little bit wider, and that could make for a more comfortable throw for him, but it also might be hurting him with some ball placement. So I think that that's something that I noticed from him. I wonder if that's stylistically or if that's something we're going to see really improve this year, if he kind of works on honing in on that accuracy, and if that's a reason why we think that that might be the case. Another good on him, only a 1.2 turnover worthy play percentage. This guy did not put the ball in harm's way very often. He would, like I said, he was smart in pre-snap. He was smart post-snap. He navigated pressure super well, which I was very, very impressed with. And I think that he has got an NFL arm. So Look, I know that teams are going to look at this guy and he's just a walking medical red flag, right? You're going to have a lot of teams in the NFL who go, we're not touching him anyways. Doesn't really matter. He's got 2 ACL tears. He's got shoulder injuries, all that good stuff. But, well, bad stuff. Shouldn't say good stuff. But when you turn on the film last year, he was gunning for a Heisman Trophy finalist spot. And he could potentially do the same thing again this year. And if he cleans up the ball placement, is even more accurate than he was the year before, we're going to have to legitimately talk about this guy as somebody who, at the very least, you might take a flyer on and say, hey, I know he's been hurt before, but if you put him out there, he might be able to win you some NFL games. So that's what I thought of Michael Penix.
I don't disagree with anything you said. I thought the thought about the hips and the mechanic part of that was really, really interesting. This is an easy transition because he's quarterback 3 for me.
There you go.
And I look at Penix, and I get it, the medical question marks that he will endure and probably already has endured from the NFL because he could have came out last year and obviously went back to school. I'm sure once we talked at the top of the show about the impact of NIL on these quarterbacks staying. But Penix was somebody to me that you go back and look at the quarterbacks at the All-Star games, and he was eligible. You would think with his arm, he would be a difference maker in that environment. And you turn on the tape and what he was able to do as a healthy player for Washington last year. I don't know where their offense is without him when you watch him play.
Yeah.
Total difference maker, over 4,600 yards through the air, 31 touchdowns, 8 picks. Just when I watched him, felt like a big time throw machine. He had 24 of those. You said it, Trevor, only 7 turnover worthy plays, and he didn't take sacks. The amount of bad plays that Penix was able to eliminate that a lot of college quarterbacks can't was maybe the most impressive aspect to me of his game. He now, assuming pretty safe assumption, he'll be a team captain this year. This will be his 4th college season as a team captain. He was a 2-time team captain for Indiana. I'm assuming he will be a 2-time team captain at Washington. He just has a howitzer of an arm that could challenge every level of the field. Serious velocity, serious timing. I don't think the injuries have impacted his unique tools. I didn't look at him and go, man, the guy's lost arm strength, or he's not moving well, or his bases, he's just clunky. And that's a big part of the equation. Are you a shell of what you once were? And I don't think he is. Very impressive operator in the pocket. He could drive the ball outside the numbers. And that, to me, I mean, you want to talk about making pro throws outside the numbers. Michael Penix has a highlight tape of those already for Washington. Attacks the immediate area of the field like a pro. Plays in rhythm with timing. Very decisive nature to let throws rip before the wide receiver's route is even really breaking. Outside the numbers, from the 10 to 19 yard range, right? You think of those tough out throws to make. He completed 40 of 68 attempts for 638 yards. That's a high rate of
That's an NFL arm.
That's an NFL arm. Like the upper echelon throws, his quarterback passer rating was very, very high. The tough stuff, he can spin out of trouble to break from the pocket. He's not a big runner, right? He's a scrambler. He's not a runner.
Yeah, I had him fully in the pocket category.
He's a pocket passer.
Yeah, I didn't have him in the dual threat category.
Keeps his eyes downfield when scrambling. So he was only sacked 5 times in 2022. That's unbelievable that you were sacked 5 times and had 7 turnover-worthy plays throughout the full course of a season, and while still making the big plays. He has feel in the pocket, doesn't hold the ball too long. High level of field awareness on 3rd and long. I watched all of his throws on 3rd and 7+, and he knows where the sticks are every time. He doesn't throw the ball short. He's not doing stupid things. He has field awareness. Let's get into the cons. You covered them really, really well. Alarming and unfortunate injury history. The 2 torn ACLs, 18 and 20. You brought up the injury where it's the clavicle to the sternum in 2019 and another shoulder injury in 2021 that was AC joint shoulder. I agree with you. The throwing motion's unorthodox. I didn't look at it with Quinn Ewers and I was like, damn, he's missing a lot of throws. Like, you got to figure something else out. I looked at it as, but that's a little weird. It's
just different.
It's just weird. It doesn't, maybe it'll bother a quarterback coach. I didn't see it affect his game, but I was like, it's a little, you're right, loopy. Loopy is a good way to put it.
I think we talked about this a little bit last year when we talked about Penix, but his throwing motion reminds me of Kaepernick's. where
Yes, they set up the same too.
Yeah, it's just like I don't know if it's just the long limbs or what, but they throw very similarly where it's a little bit unorthodox, but that ball fires off of their wrist. I mean, Kaepernick had a howitzer, and
it's insane.
I don't know if Penix has as strong of an arm as Kaepernick, but he's got a good arm.
It's pretty damn close.
It's right. He's got a great arm. So it's one of those where I watched him throw a couple of years ago, and I was like, dang, that's basically the only quarterback I've ever seen who reminds me of Colin Kaepernick and his throwing motion. So
he'll probably get a lot of comps as a passer to Kaepernick. Two nitpicky things I also wrote for the cons. I know he didn't have a lot of bad plays. I thought he does need to live for another down in the red zone sometimes. Like, he gets in the red zone, and it's like, okay, we're getting 6 here no matter what. We're in between the 20s. I saw him operate more carefully, timely. We're just going to go up the field. I'm not worried about anything. I have 3 plays to go to get a conversion. We're going to go right up the field. In the red zone, there was a couple times where I'm like, man, he really wants this touchdown, and he thinks he could fit that ball in a tight window that you don't have to do that. So that was one thing you really want to see. Just keep that same mindset that you had in between the 20s. And then when he alters his arm angle, his accuracy dips. That's the one time his accuracy dips. When he starts to change the arm angle, the arm slot, his accuracy goes down. So listen, I'm not going to get on here and play scout doctor in June. I'm not going to do it. We could have that conversation when we get after the new year and medicals are real. And I'll sit here and tell you, I like player X, but the league has him 3 rounds later than me because their doctors won't clear him, whatever it may be. Michael Penix, the player that we saw at Washington last year, was one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He passes the leadership test. He has NFL traits. He's a great pocket passer. Can't wait to see what he does this year. QB3 for me in the summer.
There we go. I just love that we're talking about Penix. You know,
it's a great story, and more people are going to now that he's, I think, top 5 for a Heisman favorite. I think people will be like, oh, last year I felt like every week
5? Oh,
he's up there. He's up there. Maybe at least top 10. It felt like no one was really. He's like truly the guy that got written off.
Mm-hmm.
And after last year, I'm like, we sure about this? Like,
you sure about that?
You sure about this? Because if we were writing down a list today of guys that I would want to watch live at the Senior Bowl that are eligible, he's number 1. Yeah. And obviously, we're excited about Bo Nix, too, who's done a lot of really nice things, too. But from a physical standpoint, physical nature, it'd be Michael Penix.
All right, got to talk to good people about something before I get into my number 3. All right, imagine this. All right, fantasy football season is about to start. Okay, you get into week 1. You're so pumped about your team. You made a tough call about how to set your lineup, and the guy that you put on the bench absolutely goes off. It's the most annoying part of playing fantasy football. Well, with Best Ball on DraftKings, now you get the best of whatever your drafted team is all season long. This year, Best Ball on DraftKings is bigger and better than ever with $10 million in guaranteed cash prizes up for grabs. Join DraftKings' biggest Best Ball contest yet today and get your first entry back in DraftKings dollars as soon as the draft is finished. Enter DraftKings Best Ball Millionaire Contest. Snake draft your team for the entire season. Each week, you'll automatically rack up points from all of your top scorers. There's no ads, there's no drops, there's no trades. You just draft a team that you think is going to score the most points, and then they're going to automate the lineup every single week for you. So you don't even have to check it. Teams with the most points by the end of the season will have a shot to take home the $1 million top prize. Head on over to DraftKings app, sign up with the promo code PFF. Join the DraftKings $10 million Best Ball tournament and get your first entry back in DraftKings dollars. That's promo code PFF on DraftKings. If you got a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. 1 per customer. Opt-in required with a $10 entry fee. Bonus issued as 10 DraftKings dollars. Agent eligibility restrictions are applied. Void where prohibited. See DraftKings.com/promotions for details. All right, number 3 for me. I think this is going to ruffle some feathers, and I'm not doing this on purpose. I'm honestly doing it as
ruffle feathers.
Yeah.
In June?
Yeah, it's Caleb Wood. No, I'm just kidding.
I was like, let's go. We are Stock Exchange meets First Take Undisputed, whatever you want to call it, whatever those shows are called these days.
So this one was very close to me, and I'm gonna be honest with the good people out there, with the good addicts. I would not have thought in a million years this was going to be close for me. I have Drake Maye at 3, and I have Bo Nix at 2. And
Okay.
I did not
I thought
think
I liked Bo Nix.
And I did not think we were going to get to this point. I truly did. Now, the Drake Maye Bo Nix argument, and we could just kind of like have that big conversation because I assume that Drake Maye is 2 for you, and we're at that point.
He didn't make my top 5.
Okay, right. Of course.
Yes, we'll do it in one big. We'll do it in one big conversation. So unreal.
This is kind of the same kind of conversation that we had with like Jordan Travis and Quinn Ewers, Bo Nix and Drake Maye. And you're both fantastic players. They're very close. I ultimately went with the one that I think is just like better right now. The same thing that I went with Jordan Travis. Like, I think Jordan Travis is better than Quinn Ewers right now. That's why he's 5. You know, if we're going off of a pure potential, who has the highest ceiling, Drake Maye would be 2 on this list. Bo Nix would be, I don't know if he'd be 3 or further down or whatever it is. But ultimately, I'm going to have Drake Maye at number 3. And there's so much to like about UNC passer. All right. They got him listed at 6'4", 225 pounds. Both of those numbers are above the 50th percentile. 6'4", 75th percentile. Love to see it. Weight 225, 63rd percentile. Absolutely love to see that as well. A little bit of background on the young man. 4-star quarterback from Huntersville, North Carolina, was originally committed to play Alabama before flipping the bird to Nick Saban, flipping over to UNC. No, he didn't do that. But I mean, he might. I mean, he kind of did. He kind of did because he was committed to Alabama, and then he flipped over to UNC. For all you dual sport athlete people out there, a 3-year basketball standout in high school who averaged 16.1 points and 11.3 rebounds per game as a junior and earned all conference and all district honors. So Pete Carroll, we know that you listen to the show. We know that you love multi-sport athletes. That one was for you. He has got quite the family of athletes around him. His dad, Mark, started at quarterback at UNC for 2 seasons in 1987 and 88. His brother, Luke, was a Tar Heel basketball legend from 2015 to 2019. I believe won a national championship. His brother, Cole, won an NCAA title as a pitcher at the University of Florida. Go Gators. And his brother, Bo, is a member of the UNC basketball team, I believe still right now. So this team, this Maye family, just insane athletes all over the place. And Drake Maye, I believe, is the youngest of them. He was certainly on the stories that I read that he was the smallest of them. He said that his brothers used to beat him up in sports all the time. And, you know, who knows? Maybe Drake Maye is going to be a number 1 overall pick. Maybe he could always hold that over his brothers since he got beat up on the court and on the field growing up a bunch. 44 big-time throws for Drake Maye. That was an 8.5% big-time throw percentage, which was 4th best in all the FBS. He had an FBS best 92.2 passing grade last season. He was top 5 in big-time throw percentage, top 5 in adjusted completion percentage, top 15 in turnover-worthy play percentage, so he was very low in turnover-worthy plays as well, and that was all coming on true dropbacks with no RPOs or play action. So if you take all of the RPO and play action plays away, you're just a true drop back passer. He is top 5 or top 15 in all those major categories. He also had the most rushing attempts of any quarterback in the FBS with 153, but kind of think that was more of just because the ball was in his hand a lot. It's not like he is this major dual threat kind of an athlete on the ground. They just like to run QB power with him, love to run QB delays, and just had the ball in his hands a ton for those scramble plays. So I think that that's kind of why he had a lot of rushing attempts there, not necessarily him being the best rushing threat of any quarterback in college football. More than adequate arm strength is the first thing that I have on his strength profile when I'm going through the notes. He's got a really good baseline of understanding coverages already at being such a young starting quarterback. Something that really impressed me is he has fantastic touch on intermediate and deep passes, makes some really well-placed balls in stride in the middle portions and deep portions of the field. And that is really huge. Like I said, he's not an explosive athlete, but he's a fluid one. You know, he can scramble, he can get outside the pocket, he can avoid pressure. So that's something that was definitely a positive note, even if he's not going to be like a major dual threat in the NFL. Here's kind of where I have a little bit of drawbacks of Drake Maye and why I have Bo Nix ahead of him at the moment. Arm strength, both the arm strength and the accuracy take a decent dip when he's on the run. So when you get like out of structure plays, and I have him graded as a pocket quarterback, so this is okay, but when he is on the run, I noticed that both of those things took a decent dip. Okay. So he had those things that were kind of going against him there. Also think he said that, I read this in an article. He said he gets nervous before every single game still. And there are times when he just like gets happy feet. Like there are a couple of plays where pressure was in his face and he had to either dump the ball off or throw the ball to a receiver who was like open, and he was like hopping, like leaping to just throw the ball to him. It's like, dude, just stand there and like throw the ball to him. So he kind of like goes through a little bit of nerves. He's not as comfortable under pressure as some of these other quarterbacks that I watched. And that's fine. It's totally fine. He's a young starting quarterback. This is just his first year of eligibility. Last year was his first year as a full-time starter. So all of that is totally, totally fine. But those are also areas of his game where that does have to improve. It's not just like, it's fine. We do need to see a better Drake Maye under pressure this upcoming season. He needs to be a little bit more grounded. He needs to be okay with when pressure's coming in different directions that he is not planning on. And when he is out of structure, need to see a little bit more consistency, especially with that ball placement, because the guys who are 1 and 2 above him that I have on this group, they were better with their accuracy and ball placement when it came to plays under pressure, at least from the games that I was able to watch from them. So ton to like about Drake Maye. Love the arm, love the background, love how fluid of an athlete he is. The touch on passes, which is something that I emphasize a ton in my scouting profiles. That is something that was a major checkbox of his. Love the size as well. I just want to see that natural progression of, hey, year 2 as a full-time starter. I'm better under pressure. I'm better at seeing things post-snap. I'm better when I'm out of structure, when I'm outside the pocket, all that good stuff. If that is the case, we are talking about a player that absolutely has the ability to go in the top 10, top 5 of an NFL draft. And so that's kind of where I am with Drake Maye going into this season.
It's an easy transition because I have him number 2. I mean, I love Drake Maye, and watching him as, obviously another really, really young player in this class was a joy because the talent is up there. I thought something that jumped out to me, he was pressured on 37% of his dropbacks in 2022. To put that in perspective, we always talk about what Will Levis dealt with last year. Will Levis was pressured on 38% of his dropbacks. So Drake Maye was under pressure a whole hell of a lot. You mentioned the 44 big-time throws. I actually liked him as an athlete. I thought he could move the pocket well, throw on the run. That was a part of his game where I'm like, okay, that he has enough of it that I don't worry about that. I do think it's a good part of his game. He forced 26 missed tackles as a runner. He is very.
I did see that. Yeah.
It is like we joke, but it is sneaky elusiveness. There was a couple of times where people would try to line him up, or they'd be like, oh, it's like this big quarterback. Like he's a pretty big guy for his age. And he has some shake to his game as a runner. But you brought it up, Trevor, the touch. I wrote that he just paints targets with touch and placement, where I'm sitting there and I'm like, whether it was a bucket challenge or a bullseye or hitting the goalpost, like this dude has really, really special ball placement pretty consistently. It is when everything is clean, he's given that pocket or he's set up really nicely, or even rolling with a moving pocket and throwing. It's beautiful. I think where things got a little tricky was there are times where he'll drift backward and throw off his back foot and the ball loses all life. And that allowed defenders to make a play on the ball when he did that. And it's a bad habit. And it's something. And he really needs to be careful with lurking safeties, like safeties over the top. He just misses them sometimes. We talked about it with Penix. I'm sure you feel this way with Bo Nix. Their eye manipulation is in a very different place because of how much college football they've played.
Yes.
And Drake Maye doesn't have that yet. There's just times where the safety just knows where he's going to throw it and jumps up and makes a play. 7 fumbles in 2022. There's times where I'm like, why are you taking that hit? Like, I know you're tough as shit. I know you're a great player. Your team respects you. You've already proven to the world you're a great quarterback at the college level. You don't need to take that hit because you fumbled 7 times. And there was plenty of them that I was like, you didn't need to take that hit. So with Drake Maye at his core, he is what a top 10 pick in the NFL draft looks like at the quarterback position. Now it's cleaning up things, polishing things, trying to limit the ball security issues that he has, because he checks the box with his frame, his height, his accuracy. I think he has enough athleticism. Like, it's all there. I did one thing I didn't say, his feet, but you're right, he doesn't have very happy feet sometimes, but when things are clicking right for him, his feet buzz and his shoulders consistently carry over with them, where his position to throw from the pocket, it's like, oh, that's why he has that kind of accuracy. Like, it's all, you watch these young quarterbacks and things are really funky a lot. And with Drake Maye, when things are all clicking, it's beautiful. It is really, really what you want at the position. So I loved him. He was QB2 for me. I came away from this class and said, damn, the top 2 quarterbacks, like, I'd be really surprised if they're not top 8, top 5 picks. Yeah. That's how impressed I was watching them.
Yep.
So I'm really, really excited about him this year.
Yeah, there's no question. If Maye kind of, again, cleans up some of those bad habits or just things that you have a tendency to naturally learn the more you play the game, then we're talking about a guy who has an incredibly high ceiling. So Maye was awesome. I know I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for having him at number 3, but like, just so you guys who can hear my voice know, like, it's not because I didn't think he's bad. It's just because I think there's still room to grow for him. And when he achieves that, he'll probably jump up into that same category with Caleb Williams being worthy of a top 10 overall selection. So my number 2 guy is Bo Nix. And maybe I have Bo Nix just because of how shocked I was when I watched his tape, because let me tell you guys, I thought Bo Nix stunk. I watched 2 years of Bo Nix when he was at Auburn, and I was like, get this guy off of my screen. I don't want to hear people talk about Bo Nix anymore. This, like, he has had his 2 years at Auburn. He had his 3rd year, obviously didn't play well there either. And I was just like, I'm not talking about, I don't care what school he goes to. He ends up going to Oregon. I'm like, shoot, I don't give a crap. And man, he was a lot of fun at Oregon. So looking at his measurables, 6'2", 215 pounds, 6'2" would be 32nd percentile. I think he's probably going to measure in a little bit shy of 6'2". So he's going to be under the 30th percentile with quarterbacks. And then 215 pounds, that's 27th percentile as well. I think you mentioned him as being somebody that could probably gain a little bit of weight.
Bo Nix, what did you have him as?
6'2" and 215 is what Oregon has him listed as.
A pretty good record. He's more 225 now. So,
let's go.
Yeah, he's, and you
225 would be 63rd percentile.
Yeah, he's very muscular. Very muscular.
He's thick.
Yeah, no, that's not a worry for me. I wrote down, I'm like, he's got mass, and it's muscle mass.
Beautiful.
Muscle mass.
Okay. Yep. I'm updating the sheet now because I'm so glad to hear that he is 225. So if he's 225, then that's 63rd percentile. So our boys got some meat on him. Pause. All right. So the background with Bo Nix, 4-star quarterback, originally from Pinson, Alabama. Was an incredible high school quarterback.
Isn't he from Arkadelphia?
Oh, yeah. I think he was born
Remember that running joke we had?
He was born in Arkadelphia. Yes.
Arkadelphia, Arkansas.
Yeah, he was born in Arkadelphia, Arkansas, but
a real place.
He played high school football for Pinson Valley High School in Pinson, Alabama. So won Alabama's Mr. Football his senior season. His father Patrick Nix was a former player himself. He was the quarterback for Auburn from 1992 to 1995. You figure that that's probably the reason why when Nix committed to Auburn and started right away, wonder if there's a little bit of a legacy play there. So started as a true freshman, played 3 seasons with the Tigers, but he was benched for TJ Finley in 2021. That ultimately led to him getting transferred over to Oregon. And that's basically where I was at, where I was like, I don't want to talk about this guy as a pro. Like, the accuracy was not nearly what it needed to be. And worse than that, the decision-making was awful. When he was at Auburn, his decision-making sucked. He had an incredible second half beating Oregon, ironically enough, in that very first game of his season as a true freshman. And people were like, this guy's incredible. He had one good second half of football, and we talked about him for the next 3 years, and he was never that good ever again. A lot of that changed against when he went to Oregon. Now, to your point, the offense was simpler. The average depth of target for him was less than it was previously when he was at Auburn. But still, even when he started to attack deep down the field, he started to take care of the ball a lot better. 1.7% turnover worthy play percentage, which is by far the best of his career this past year. He didn't have a turnover worthy play percentage below 2.8 in any of the previous 3 seasons. His play under pressure, another area where I was like, this guy is not NFL caliber, improved drastically in 2022. He had a 72.2 passing grade under pressure last season, and his previous high was 62.8. I believe the 2 years before that, they were in the 40s. So this guy really struggled with just plain old decision-making when it came to a clean pocket, decision-making when it came to play under pressure, accuracy, and turnover-worthy plays across the board. He was better in all of those areas this past year. I think he had let me pull this up. I think I have it right here. His total adjusted completion percentage was 82.6%. This dude completed more than 80% of his passes. Now, you mentioned how many of them came behind the line of scrimmage. So you go, okay, let's factor in a handful of percentages there because he's throwing a lot of stuff behind the line of scrimmage. But still, even if you took behind the line of scrimmage stuff away, which I think we can do in Ultimate, which I don't have the time to do right now because I'm talking, I bet we're still in like a healthy mid-70s for him completion percentage.
He's accurate. I mean, you could say it with your chest.
He is way more accurate than he previously had been. I think he is such a fundamentally sound quarterback. And maybe this is, again, why I was so gravitated towards his tape. His feet are so mirrored with everything that happens above him. The feet to the hips, the shoulders, the chest, the release of the football, all of that. It's just picture perfect almost every single time. The fundamentals are beautiful for this dude. You mentioned how smart he is pre-snap. He is already comfortable adjusting plays. There were a handful of times in the games that I watched of him where he recognizes things pre-snap and he adjusts the play calls. Now, sometimes you get in a situation where you break the huddle and you got 2 plays and you're killing one of them. But either way, he's making really great calls, knowing where the linebacker is going to flow to. Is this going to be a blitz? Do I think the defensive end is going to crash? Are the safeties going to rotate down, or am I going to get 2 safeties high? He never seemed rattled because it felt like he had the answers to the test before he snapped the ball because he knew what the coverage was going to be. So that was great. Decent athleticism to be an RPO threat at the NFL. He's not going to be a burner, but he understands how to slide. He understands when to get down, and he understands when to tuck it and run. So I think that's going to be there. You mentioned that you didn't love his arm strength. I actually did. I actually liked his arm strength a decent amount. I think that's where you and I see him differently the most. Is you kind of question, okay, his arm might be fine for the NFL.
It's adequate.
I think it's a little bit better than fine. There are a handful of times where I felt like he was firing it to the sideline for a back shoulder throw, and he was able to hit it. In the game, what was it? Hold on, I have it right here. In the UCLA game, there is a play where he dials up a 55-yard bomb deep, and it just looks like a thing of beauty. And it is just perfectly in line, in stride, right in the end zone, right into the breadbasket. And that was a 55-yard bomb. So I went, okay, this guy's got the distance to do it. Now, did it have a little bit of a Russell Wilson moonball arc to it? Yeah, okay, it did. But he still got it exactly where it needed to be. So I was pretty comfortable with him there. Something else that I wanted to note about his fundamentals and his kind of football IQ, if you will. A lot of these guys that you watch nowadays, they operate strictly from the shotgun. Like, it's a lot of shotgun offenses because shotgun, you don't have to worry about the timing of the guy behind you kind of getting even with you or getting into the play. You don't have to turn your back on play action. You get to scan the field a little bit more. You get to be already a couple of steps back if pressure's coming at you, so you get a little bit of extra time to react to it. Bo Nix is comfortable in the shotgun, also very comfortable under center. Very used to playing under center. They'll go center, they'll go gun with him. So he's very versatile in that regard as well. There were a couple of times during his tape when I felt like he had a little bit of flair for the dramatics when it comes to the deep ball, but it really was not nearly as drastic as it was the year before. So to me, that's still quite the improvement. The Georgia game was really bad, but that was the first game of the season. He drastically improved as the year went on, and a lot of those turnover-worthy plays really went away. So I was so impressed with what I saw from Bo Nix. Such a fundamentally sound quarterback, somebody who understands how to win at the position between the ears before you win with your arm. Loved his versatility of where you could play him, shotgun, under center, all that kinds of stuff. Ton of experience. You could see that And I liked his arm. I thought his arm was a little bit better than adequate for the NFL level when it came to zip, velocity, if you will, and then on distance too. So super impressed with the man. That's ultimately why, because of how clean his 2022 season was. That's why I have him at number 2 here on this list.
All right, let's get to the grand finale. I mean, no one's really that surprised that Caleb Williams lands at QB1 here. I'll just jump right into it from
Please
watching him. And Caleb Williams is in that bucket of player that, as it stands today, he is the runaway favorite to be the number 1 overall pick.
He should be
in the 2024 NFL draft. And it's not just the sports books, the general public. The NFL is already looking at this guy and thinking the same thing. And he's somebody that, honestly, would he have been the number 1 pick this year? I can't answer that question. You think definitively yes?
Definitively yes.
Okay. I definitely lean that way, but it's that crazy. And it goes to show you how talented he is. So Caleb Williams comes off a Heisman Trophy winning year. Completed 66.7% of his passes for over 4,500 yards, 42 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, only 9 turnover-worthy plays, 31 big-time throws, rushed for 382 yards, and 10 rushing touchdowns. The good I wrote down with him: compact build that looks to be carrying desired mass for the position with a frame that can hold a lot of good weight, full field reader that can manipulate defenders with his eyes, not much fear of getting hit or needing to shed contact, can throw with his arm at any angle and entirely without his base, releases fast, and the ball effortlessly explodes out of his hands. Unique arm talent where he can roll and move the pocket one way, then deliver with velocity to the other side of the field in advantageous coverage. They set up plays where quarterbacks are not supposed to be able to hit that area of the field from where he's positioned. And this guy can do it. And that alone is a very, very unique advantage under center. Slippery in the pocket, an escape artist, getting out of it. He has those wow plays where you're like, there's defenders draped all over him, and then who comes screaming out of the pocket with the baggy long sleeves on to extend a play. Here's just a wild number. Yards per attempt when kept clean, 9.0. Yards per attempt when under pressure, 8.6. He's no different under pressure. And he had 14 touchdowns and no picks when pressured. I mean, watching him play, and I did write down cons. I want to be fair. It's not a perfect player. It's not a perfect player at all, but he's set himself up, Trevor, to be or is an excellent quarterback prospect because he can do things that many cannot. And he's already playing at an extremely high level. Some of the things I wrote down in the con section was he naturally drifts backwards and sideways at times. If the initial read he wants isn't open, he'll just kind of carry his body back or sideways because, once again, he can play off platform. And I don't think that's something you want to constantly do. I do think you don't need in this era to be, Peyton Manning pocket passer, right? I don't need you to do that. But it does have to be a consistent part of your game because teams will just drop a million defenders in coverage and say, beat us playing within the pocket. Right. And I think he has some growth to go through there. I wrote goes through progressions, but still working on processing from the pocket for anticipation throws. He likes to see guys open and rip it. He doesn't like to always throw guys open. There's examples, but consistently with a clean pocket, he likes to wait a little bit. His misses can be from his base not transferring with his eyes. He knows he has a special arm, and he occasionally tries to cheat throws. If you want to know what I'm talking about, so people don't think I'm completely insane, because I know Caleb Williams is probably the most hyped quarterback prospect we've had in a while. Watch the Colorado game. He comes out of the Colorado game, and USC was like, okay, we're going to open up with some scripted short throws, screens, drags, air mails, plenty of them. And then they just start out athleting and highlight reel playing. They're just a better team, and he's a better player than everybody on the field. But that's an example of a time where it's like, make the throw. Drop back, hit the screen. And the fact that I have to talk about, that's what I'm talking about with this guy, shows how special he is. And I don't want to take up the whole Caleb Williams section, so I want to throw to you. But obviously, a very, very exciting player to scout. Very, very exciting.
I agree with a ton of what you said. Obviously, when you were saying, would this guy have been the number one overall pick this year? I fully believe that Caleb Williams would have been the number one overall pick this year. I fully believe that. He's listed at 6'1", 220 pounds, 6'1", only 14th percentile. So it's not that like this guy's like the prototypical quarterback size. Like he's still a little bit on the smaller side for the quarterback position, even though you don't really think about it when you're watching him. 220 pounds would be the 45th percentile. So still below 50th percent, but that's okay. Especially when you watch him play, you'll be all right. Background, a little bit of background information on him before I kind of dig into what I thought of the film notes as well. 5-star quarterback from Washington, D.C. was the number 2 quarterback in the 2021 draft class or 2021 recruiting class behind Quinn Ewers. So Quinn Ewers was the number 1 quarterback in that class. Caleb Williams was number 2. Actually grew up playing running back before his coaches said that his arm strength was too good to be playing running back. So an NFL franchise, I think, owes that coach something for convincing this guy to be a quarterback. He got a scholarship offer from Maryland before he even played a down of high school football. His nickname is Superman. If you look at his logo for his NIL stuff, it is the Superman shield, but it's just got a CW for Caleb Williams in the middle of that. So a little bit of a trivia there for you when you talk about his logo. He committed, obviously played at Oklahoma before he played at USC. He's followed Lincoln Riley the whole way. He committed to Lincoln Riley when he was at Oklahoma, ended up taking over for Spencer Rattler his true freshman season, and then he ended up moving over to USC when he left for Southern, or when Riley left for Southern Cal. Last year, some accolades for him. Won the Heisman Trophy in 2022, set USC records for passing yards, total touchdowns, total passing touchdowns, lowest interception rate, and most passes completed. That was all as a true sophomore in his first season there at USC. Unbelievable. 1.6 turnover-worthy play rate with and without pressure. That is stupid. The fact that you have one of the lowest turnover-worthy play rates in college football and you have the same low turnover-worthy play rate when you are pressured, silly. That just tells you how good this guy is. His passing grade under pressure, here's a little bit of comparison for the would he have gone number 1 overall. The biggest thing that Bryce Young boasted was what, Connor? Between the ears, right? How he played under pressure. It was unbelievable to see how Bryce Young played when he was under pressure. Bryce Young's passing grade last year, under pressure, 70.8. It was one of the best in the FBS. The best in the FBS, that was Caleb Williams, 79.7. He almost had an A grade in the 80s as a passer under pressure. Folks, this is stupid. It's absolutely stupid how good he is. He's got the arm talent. He's got the talent with his legs as well. He could be a little bit of a dual threat for you. He checks all the physical boxes. The way that he attacks all areas of the field has been unbelievable. Some weaknesses, and I'll throw these out there as well because you mentioned those too. Arm talent, and I agree with you here. Arm talent has understandably yielded some bad tendencies. He's not often put in situations where he cannot throw his way out of it in college football, even if he reads the defense and releases it a little bit behind. But some of those passes that were broken up that I saw in some of those plays, they turn into interceptions at the NFL level. So it's perfectly coachable, but it is something that you've got to monitor. For as magical as he is outside of structure in the highlight plays that we'll see on SportsCenter, he has some head scratching moments under pressure where he'll use. This was the part that bothered me the most about his game. He will magically escape pressure between the pocket, and he will get to the outside, the left or right, and there will be 12 yards of green grass in front of him for him to pick up before he even has to slide. And he will just stand at the line of scrimmage and say, nah, we're going for it all, baby. And you can say to yourself, oh, well, he'll learn that eventually. He does need to learn that, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's the same conversation with Drake Maye. We can sit here and say, yeah, but he'll learn that eventually. Okay. It's not always the case. I think it will be the case, but he's just got to get to a point where if Caleb Williams played a little bit better situational football, I mean, this dude's just an unstoppable player at the quarterback position.
Right.
He has every other gift to him. He's just got to play a little bit better situational football. And I think that that's something that you got to note as well. So there we go. I had Caleb Williams as well as my quarterback number 1. That is no surprise, I don't think, to to either of us, to anybody out there. Connor, do you have anybody else? We both mentioned our sixth guy because yours was Jordan Travis, mine was Quinn Ewers. But anybody else you watch or that you watched a little bit of last year that you kind of want to shout out throughout the names that you wrote down on your watch list?
A couple guys I'm keeping an eye on, at least. You look at, we did Tyler Van Dyke's eval last year. He did not have a good season. He needs a big rebound season. Devin Leary will be on the NFL's radar at Kentucky now.
Yep. I like Leary. I do like Leary. I wonder what his ceiling is, but
game manager.
But can he be that Jake Haener of this class?
Bingo. That's exactly what you want him to be. Same with, Trevor, I want to ask you, I know you watched Joe Milton. He's like the just total wild card of this draft, because not only has he not played a ton, he's a massive human. He's an older prospect.
Mm-hmm.
He could probably throw the ball 90 yards in the air.
Dude, it's unbelievable.
But he needs to be a quarterback is what he needs to be. So he's a very fascinating name to keep an eye on.
Yeah, so I did an eval for Milton on this one. He was not close to my top 5. He's 6'5", 242 pounds, which is 98th percentile and 94th percentile. Okay, so this dude's just huge. He was a 3-star quarterback from Orlando, spent some time at Michigan, sat behind Shea Patterson for 2 years, got a chance to start.
Throwback name.
Started for a little bit, got replaced by Cade McNamara. Then he transferred to Tennessee, was the starter at Tennessee, then got replaced by Hendon Hooker. So now he is going to be the starter again at Tennessee. I have in my notes here for him, without question, will have the strongest arm in this class. And in fact, will have one of the strongest arms in the NFL when he gets to the NFL. Yeah, so, I mean, there's a lot of things that also go into playing the quarterback position. But if you're talking about like arm talent, he checks those boxes completely. Checks all the physical boxes. Lower body mechanics just stop at times. I mean, he is not bouncing around the pocket. It's like his feet are in cement sometimes. There is no natural marrying between what's going on with his feet, what's going on with his shoulders, what's going on with his hands, what's going on with his eyes, what's going on with his head. Like it's all discombobulated. It is not a fluid thing for him right now. Lack of mechanics caused some major accuracy issues for him. Adjusted completion percentage has never been higher than 67.5. Never been higher. And that was limited play last year. So a full season of him, and he's got to get that thing above like 7% more than it was last year. He is not nearly as accurate or consistent enough of a player to be considered a serious NFL quarterback at this point in time. I watched JJ McCarthy and Spencer Rattler as well for this exercise.
Yep, me too.
Rattler kind of is what he is, guys. I mean, like
you can keep hoping.
Yeah, a lot of the points that I would say are very stereotypical, I think, for Spencer Rattler. He just has to be a better decision maker, under pressure and not under pressure. That's about it. He puts the ball in harm's way a lot, and he's got a good arm, so sometimes he can get away with it, but his turnover-worthy play percentage is not good, and though his accuracy scores are high, that decision-making is not where it needs to be. JJ McCarthy, I know a lot of people like him, started for the first time last year with Michigan, obviously took Michigan on a wild ride getting to the college football playoff. Here's kind of the first thing that I wrote in my, well, first and foremost, they have him listed as 6'3", which 6'3" is 54th percentile. I would tell you that JJ McCarthy's probably like 6'2". So I think he's a little bit shorter than what Michigan has him listed as. They've got him listed at 196. My guy needs to start eating peanut butter and J sandwiches. A school listing you at 196 is not good because we know the schools are going to help you, right? 196 is the first percentile of weight for quarterbacks.
They should just wrote down 200.
The guy's got to get bigger. He's got to gain weight. He has to gain weight from a durability standpoint, and he has to gain weight from a strength standpoint. Because you can tell he gets rattled under pressure because I think he's getting hit by a lot of these big guys. He does not deal with pressure very well. The internal clock in his head is not where it needs to be. The accuracy under pressure is not where it needs to be. He needs to play more football, essentially. Like he's got to get bigger and he's got to play more football. Natural talent. I think that he is alluring athlete and a natural passer, but he is not a quarterback right now. He is simply a thrower of the football. He does not play the position with the awareness and IQ and knowledge that you need to really play it. And I think that you see that by the fact that when I looked up his numbers, he only has 13 big time throws to 8 turnover worthy plays. And that just shows you that's a quarterback that they have not let loose yet. Like for you to only have those low of numbers, I think kind of hints at that a little bit. So that was kind of my thoughts on JJ McCarthy and Spencer Rattler. So those are my thoughts on those 3 guys.
Totally agree. The guys in my top 5 that I watched them, the guys that didn't make my top 5 that I watched the most of were Jordan Travis and JJ McCarthy. And I wrote down McCarthy to piggyback off you, and the first line of in the cons was dangerously chaotic in the pocket and can run himself into the pass rush.
Yes.
And I'm like, he's a young quarterback, and it's he's a little hopped up back there. And I'm with you too. I didn't think he played fast. He doesn't read the field fast. He misses lurking zone defenders. He's got a long ways to go. Interesting hockey background. He had to choose between hockey and football.
I did read that as well.
Yes. Very interesting background with him. So, I mean, Trevor said he's got over 20. Same with me. I ended up with 29 names on this quarterback watch list. We're going to talk about throughout the season, KJ Jefferson, Jaden Daniels, Shadur Sanders, Brennan Armstrong, Cam Rising, like all the guys you're wondering about that you didn't hear about today. You're going to hear about them throughout the season. But this is summer scouting where the best of the best have been evaled and ranked and mentioned, and this is where we start every single year.
There are so many quarterbacks, man. I mean, DJ Uiagalelei is in this class still. Sam Hartman's in this class. Like
Grayson
McCall's in this class. There's so many quarterbacks, and that is let's recap our top 5s real quick. My top 5, I had Jordan Travis at number 5. I had Michael Penix at number 4. I had Drake Maye at number 3. I had Bo Nix at number 2. And I had Caleb Williams at number 1.
So number 5 for me was Quinn Ewers. Number 4 for me was Bo Nix. Number 3, Michael Penix. Number 4, Drake Maye. And of course, number 1, Caleb Williams.
And you said number 4, Drake Maye, but you meant
number 2, Drake Maye.
You can't be lower on Drake Maye than me.
No, I will not be. And I can't have 2 number 4s and no number 2. That'd just be playing myself.
Guys, we want to know.
Number 2, Drake Maye.
We want to know what y'all think. There are, like Connor said, there's so many names to know in this quarterback class that we know that you guys out there have watched a little bit of all of these guys. Let us know what you think of our takes, what you think of our rankings, but also give us yours as well. If there's a quarterback that we didn't talk about enough, tell us about him. Hit us up in the YouTube comments.
All you Gavin Hardison fans out there, sound off.
YouTube.com/@NFL Stock Exchange is the best way to get in on the conversations. And like Connor said, summer scouting took on a life of its own last year. This is some of my favorite episodes that we do in this series because it gives us the ability to really look back on the takes that we had during the summer, how guys improved, how they didn't, whether they stayed the same, whether we knew who they were all along. You guys can get in on that conversation too. We'd love to hear from you. We would love to hear as many summer scouting thoughts as possible, not just for this quarterback class, but for all of the players. So let us know in the YouTube comments is the best way for us to hear your thoughts, to echo them here on the show. And we're going to have some, Fan Friday or mailbag episodes too, where we read a lot of you guys' thoughts to get in on the fun as well. If you're audio only, you could hit us up on Twitter and Instagram at Tampa Bay Trey and at Connor J. Rogers. We will be back with you next Monday, to talk about the running back group as we are going position by position throughout the rest of the summer. But Connor, you got anything else before we get out of here?
Smash, like, subscribe. We're done.
Smash, like, and subscribe, baby. For Connor Rogers, I am Trevor Sikkema. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening to the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. We'll see you next time.